Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to QGTV. We're on day 4 now of our Ramadan Overview 2011 and today we'll be looking at chapter 4. I think one thing which I probably didn't mention in the last couple of days at least is the fact that if you want to see what a chapter is about, you should look at the particular aspects of what that chapter talks about, which is not talked about in other chapters. So let's take, for example, Baqarah and Ali Imran, chapters 2 and 3, respectively. Right? Baqarah talks about a number of things, but it does not talk about the concept of Islam. The concept of Islam is rather expounded in Ali Imran. So there you can see Ali Imran stands out in that particular sense. So we're back to An-Nisa now, chapter 4. We're looking at chapter 4 today. Chapter 4 mentions things which are not mentioned in chapters 2 and 3. So if you were to read the Quran from the beginning, from Fatiha, and then you move on to chapter 2 Baqarah, chapter 3 Ali Imran, suddenly you come to subjects which the text has not mentioned before. Things like believers and how the believers should be organized, what the believers should do, what are the priorities, etc., etc. I won't get into it now because that's what this presentation is about. So we begin with the breakdown of An-Nisa chapter 4. Basically, An-Nisa is 176 verses and is also easily segmented into various parts. And you'll see how the parts are arranged because each part is in accordance with the call. So chapter 4 does not have a preamble like chapters 2 and 3. There's no preamble there, rather it starts with Ya ayyuhan nas, O mankind. So the first segment of chapter 4 begins with the call to humankind, Ya ayyuhan nas. In this segment, there are a number of topics, and the first topic is the care of the yatama or the orphans. The orphans, you should read it as widely as possible. These are people who are disadvantaged. They have no one to cling to, no one to hold them up. In fact, the Quran contrasts the state of being yatim to the state of awa, which means to be sheltered. The Quran says, وَوَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. We found you as a yatim and we gave you shelter. So here you can see that verses 1 to 18 talks about this call to humankind to look after the orphans, to care for them. And also it gives you instructions for distribution of wealth and social control, because there are people who practice injustice and they should also we should also know how to deal with them. Next, so the second segment is the first call to the believers, where they are told to take care of the more unfortunate ones in society. So it's a follow-up from the first passage, verses 1 to verse 18. Here, the believers are told whom to form social relations with, how they are supposed to have those social relations, whom they are supposed to hold sacred in society. So once they have this, they will be able to carry out the mandate given in the early part of the chapter. This chapter ends in verse 28, but we have 3 verses before that. So verses 26 to 28 actually give you a summation of what's going on. Basically it says that Allah wishes to make clear for you and to guide you to the sunan or practices of those before you and to turn to you. Then it says, Allah wishes to help you return and not follow your shahwat or your passions. Then it ends by saying Allah wishes to lighten for you because basically, the creation of the insan is weak. So here we can see that these um, ayat from verse 26 to verse 28 is the goals which you will reach if you practice it, if you practice the first part, which is verse 1 to verse 18, and then verse 19 to verse 25. So then we continue to the third segment, and you'll see how this is building up now. It's building up. The third segment is from verse 29 to verse 42, which talks about the believers trading with one another. And in that verse 29, it says, instead of trading with one another, don't kill yourselves. So basically, killing yourselves, or destroying your potential, is averted if you can trade with one another. So you have, between the believers. And once again, this is not a religious term. It is meant for people who have trusted in God's system. Now we move to verse 43 to 46. Again, it's to believers, but this time it's their approach to the salat, or the connection with Allah. This time you can see that the connection with Allah is described in the previous passage, which is their social action. And they are supposed to connect with Allah in this way, and Allah will obviously give them support. Next we move on to verse 47 to 58, where it talks to those who are given the book. So this is the first time in the Quran where it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina utul kitab, O ye who have been given the kitab. Again, what's the kitab? Well, it could be, number one, it could be the order, the ordainment. Number two, it could be a system. Or number three, it could even be a scripture. But either one would work as a kitab. And they are told to believe in what's being revealed, and to establish justice, and to give the rights, or rather give the responsibilities to those who are due. So if you consider this passage, and it comes straight after the call to the believers, that shows that at that point the believers have a system going, and so that system must be cared for in the right way.